Prophet Jason Green, also known as Slayer, and this is my testimony. Start off with my birth. I was born 2 pounds 2 ounces, Frankfurt, Germany. My mother was in the military. I was born premature. In the process of that, I was born with aspiration pneumonia. I had a heart murmur, a hole in my heart. Because of that, the nurse who was doing my cares almost killed me 3 separate instances. I almost lost my life. This is just coming to America when I was on my way to America. And from there, from day one, the enemy was trying to attack my life. I grew up in a single family home, single mother, raised me and my brothers and my sisters. I grew up without my father there. My family members, a lot of them were into gangs. Some of them struggled with their own addictions, whether it was alcohol or drugs. My own mother, she struggled with a cocaine addiction and had several relapses. So I always dealt with abandonment issues coming up as a child, and internalized a lot of things, caused me to have anger problems. I didn't lash out, but I was internally angry. During the time of my separation from my mother, I was put into was like a foster home, but it was actually a transitional, like a cottage situation. When I was there, I was molested. That began the seeds being planted for the lifestyle that I would come to later live. Seeds got planted there, and then as I got older, I got gang raped before, and then molested by other people. Men and women, caused me to go through 23 years of just living in homosexuality and seclusion, living undercover. No one knew what I was doing, but it was just something because of the internal pain that I was dealing with. Really not having a friend or someone to express what was going on with me, so I had to put up this facade, that I wasn't this person. Everyone expected me to be so good and so this, but I had a secret. It wasn't until when I got back with my mother, I was about 11 years old. She was going through her transition, getting back into her life, stabilizing herself. She was clean for, I believe, about 8 or 6 years, and then there was another relapse. And in that relapse, that's when I had to take care of my brothers and sisters. I had to step up and take care of them, cook for them, make sure they got to school. No one knew for, I think, 3 to 4 months that my mother had relapsed, because she taught me how to cook, she taught me how to clean, she taught me about God, so I would pray and talk to God, at a young age, just praying for Him to help me, just praying for His hand to intervene. Little did I know that He would answer my prayer. And I remember when I actually started getting involved in lifestyles, closer to my high school years, closer to 11th and 12th grade years in high school. That's when it started to come, things started to begin to come to the surface. I was finding myself trying to identify, with who I was. Was I my past? Was I what was done to me? And I began to go through these different identity crises and these changes. And I remember that there was I would meet up with guys and girls, but I would meet up with people at first. I first started off just going out with people, never having any sexual contact with people, just posing as a boyfriend, for whoever needed me to, but they would have to pay me because I needed money to take care of my siblings. And from there, my morals began to drop, and I started to do things that I said I wouldn't do because, little did I know the enemy was, taking the ante up. But I did what I had to do to take care of my family. And because of that, I got involved in the lifestyle. My heart got involved in it. I began stripping, smoking weed, drinking. I was in a depression, and I remember I was praying to God. I know I had a calling on my life, and I prayed to God and I asked the Lord. I said, my mom told me about you. I don't know too much about you. If you change my mom, and you could have me. And that was the deal I made with him. And within about, I think 4 to 5 months, my mom was off the streets. She was no longer smoking. She was evangelizing, full of the Spirit of God. And I knew that He was real. and I began to run because I didn't want to pay up. As I began to run, I started running and went to church. My initial aspect of church, I began to evangelize in this church, and I began to, help out in this church and really just begin to try to belong. And I was going through this identity crisis, and I was wearing my hair like Cisco or whatever. And the pastor made a comment that was very offensive, even though there was a lifestyle I was living. He did some things that he said some things that were really harsh. And this wasn't a rebuke of, I didn't feel like it was a rebuke of kindness. It was arrogance, and it caused me to leave God. This was in 2001, and I said, I don't want to have anything to do with God. If this is your people, this is how they're going to do people. I never heard a message of hope for the situation I was in. It was always that the homosexuals going to hell. So I figured if I was going to go to hell, I'd at least make sure that everybody else got in. So I just would take people to church, make sure that they got their life right with God. And I just brought people by the droves, So I was like, I guess I wasn't going to be included. I just was, whatever I was struggling with, it was just, Jesus couldn't change it. And I never heard a message of hope. Just always condemnation. I was like, well, if I'm going to go to hell, I at least care enough about people that I didn't want them to go to hell. So I started evangelizing and bringing people to Jesus. I was telling them about the Jesus that I believed in, but I just felt like I was just so unclean. He didn't want to have anything to do with me. And many people got saved and many people gave their life to God. But within my mind, I thought that it was over for me because the messages were I was an abomination, or what I was doing was an abomination. And I didn't know how to stop because these were things that had become a part of my lifestyle. They were habitual for me. The pastor had said something. This was during the time that Cisco was around, and I began to emulate his, almost like being a look-alike, and pastor made a comment about that, really open, and it kind of, I felt that it was something that he could have pulled me to the side to say, because I, he let it know I wasn't as mature in the spirit, and it really crushed me, and I didn't want to have anything to do with the church after that. I didn't want to have anything to do with God after that. I didn't understand that he was rebuking me at the time. I thank him for it now. But then I wasn't mature enough, so I left the church. I cut off my blonde hair. I gave him back his black hair since my hair was such a problem. I felt that he missed the content of my heart, and I left God, and I ran for, it was in 2001 to like 2003. I'll hear about God, and I was really like, man, whatever. I was just hurt. I was scorned, and I remember I got to the point to where, I started just getting more and more involved in lifestyles because of that unforgiveness that was in my heart. And I started going to the clubs, and, I guess I was stripping and smoking. These were things that I would have never found myself doing. And during that time, I was in the crump, in the crump world. This was in the developmental stages of it. And I was one way in the crump world, but I had another lifestyle, and then I was one way at home, and I was one way in the hood. And so all these different people that I had to become begin to, these different personalities, they began to crash down, and I got to the point to where I wanted to commit suicide because I was not happy, I was not fulfilled, and I felt like the people that I was interacting with, they didn't know who I really was. And I just really wanted genuine friendship, somebody that genuinely loved me for who I was, not because of, how smart I was, not because of how good I looked, not because of how good I danced, not because of, the ride that I gave them, not because of any of those things, but because of who I was, despite my flaws. And that pain, led me, to suicide. I had like, 3 to 4 car accidents within the time that I was running, because the Lord was trying to get my attention. At the same time, Satan was trying to take me out before I ever answered my calling. I found myself hanging around people I would have never, ever stood in the company of. But somehow these ended up being my friends. And it got bad. And, I was in the crump world. I would go there, and, I was dragging at the time, and it was like, man, dragon's this and dragon's that. And I was this bad warrior, just that everyone feared, but that was an expression of my anger, And so That dance was that dance at that time. My anger fueled that, my rejection fueled that, my abandonment issues fueled that. And that's why I danced the way I danced. That's why there was so much passion, because I was in pain. And like I said, I got to the point of suicide. And I remember I heard the voice of the Lord speak to me for the first time. I was on my bed taking pills to kill myself, and he said, stop. And it was like I knew it was him. There was no one there. I knew it was him. And he said, give me your life and I will make it worth living. And that's all he said to me. No dust fell, nothing quaked, nothing shook. I just felt it within my soul. I just heard him. And even though I didn't want to get up the next morning, I wanted to go to bed that night and never get up. I got up the next morning and I had a desire to live, just a word from him. It wasn't a scripture, it was a word. Being in the Crump world, I was during that time, they were filming the movie Rise and we were going through that, but no one knew, even some of my closest friends in Crump or the people that were close to me, they didn't know that I was dying on the inside, and I was dancing to keep from dying. And that's what actually, it made me, that was the only thing I had going for myself was the dance. It was my expression. And I didn't know at the time I was dancing to God. I was dancing. I was dancing to be free. And like I said, I gave my life to the Lord. First time that I've heard a prophetic voice, and then a prophet spoke to me regarding what was in my heart, and it shook me because the night before I heard a voice that I'd never heard before, that I knew it was the Lord, and then here's this man that I've never met telling me about somebody he never, so I knew that there had to be a God, and after that, God would just send different prophets and tell me about the calling that was on my life, and I didn't understand how could I have a calling and feel so filthy. How could a homosexual and an ex-molester and a pervert have a calling? As dirty as I felt, as dirty as I thought I was, I didn't want to stop. Physically, I didn't want to stop, but something in me knew I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And my spirit man began to thirst, hunger for God. And I found myself in the middle of sessions, Bible studying, and I found myself praying while everyone else was getting off, and I found myself stealing away and seeking God. And I would go to church Sunday, 3 times. Every day that a church was open, I needed to live. I needed to live. I didn't want to die, and I knew that that's when I had to make a choice. Did I want to become a great dancer, or did I want to get closer to God? And that's when I just started to seek after God. And because of the rejection issues and the popularity that I had in Crump, and this is a time that Rise had begun to take off, and I was all over the big screens, and many people out there were like, you're just so awesome, and I was in awe the whole time. I was numb because not just a couple of months before, I was the nobody, that nobody wanted to, that people didn't want to know the heart of a person or overlook, to now because I'm on TV, people wanted my signature, and people wanted to, it was so superficial to me, that these people didn't know me, but they were willing to have sex with me or do whatever whatever I would ask them to do just because I was on TV, and I didn't want that. I didn't want anybody to go through the pain that I went through, so I just decided, I didn't want to be the star anymore. I didn't want to be the icon. I wanted to be a servant. I wanted to be broken. I wanted to become less so he could become more. I felt like I owed God, and I turned from Hollywood, myself and my bro Chaz, okay, Tight Eyes, turned from Hollywood because we were on fire for God, and I began to just mentor and mentor young people and just pour into them, share with them my testimony, help teaching them about sexual immorality and perversion, and the gift of prophecy, prophetic calling, just beginning to get strong in my life. And I found myself at sessions dancing, and then the Spirit of the Lord would have me speak to people, and a lot of people were weirded out by me, but I just love God, and it was something that He was doing. I was not in control, and He just began to birth the ministry within me, began to birth Slaughterhouse. I didn't go to a theology school. I didn't sit up under a seminary. It was a God ordained call, and it was a God anointed call, and God those that had experienced, whenever we would interact, they experienced the power of God, definitely. Lives would change. And during that time, as we would go evangelize and we would dance and we had sessions, the Lord began to speak to me. And he said, I want you to look at something. And I found myself casting devils out of a lot of people. Some of you may even watch this YouTube. I found myself casting devils and laying hands on people, and they're crying out to God to open a ministry called Slaughterhouse Ministries, and another outreach ministry called Project Lot, and a prophetic school, Slaughter University. Project Lot is for the homosexual, the lesbian, the transgender, those that just feel like that they have nothing to do with church, to teach them the truth, that they were not created to be homosexual, they were not created to be a lesbian, and even in their struggle, God still can transform them. I'm a living witness. God's blessed me with 2 children, a lovely wife Aziza, 2 children, Caleb and Eden. Beautiful ministry in Slaughterhouse Ministries, spiritual sons and daughters. And the message is always through Jesus Christ. It's always through Jesus Christ. So if you're there and you're saying, there's no hope for me, I'm too dirty, I've messed up so bad, I'm a living witness. Doesn't matter how dirty you are, doesn't really matter how many times you messed up, because I messed up after my salvation. But I understood that the blood paid for all of my mistakes. And just because he paid for my mistakes, I didn't want to continue to live those mistakes. I wanted to learn how to not do them. So I live today and I breathe for God. And for God I live, for God I die. Be blessed.